What is now Taurus was originally called Gugulana. He was the celestial bull or the great bull of heaven. He was a servant of the supreme deity An or Anu. And this service aspect is a major part of what this constellation really means. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the goddess of love, beauty, fertility, and sexuality, Inanna or Ishtar, asks Gilgamesh to marry her. He refuses and she becomes very upset. So she goes to Anu and kind of demands that he loan her his bull of heaven so she may bring him down to earth and he can wreak havoc on Uruk, which is Gilgamesh's city. At first he refuses, but eventually, after she threatens to tear down the sky and release all the demons from the underworld, he agrees and she takes the giant celestial bull down to earth. While he's there, just being a giant cow, he drinks all of the rivers dry, he eats all of the vegetation, and this is probably more to do with the fact that this constellation rose in the spring skies about 10,000 years ago, right as the climate was really starting to change and it became much more arid in that region of the world. So we don't focus so much on the destructive nature in this constellation. The consuming nature is actually very important. Throughout Mesopotamian literature and myth, we have associations with bulls and rain, thunderstorms, semen, virility, a lot of fertility. And there are also some really strong Mercury connotations in here that I will write an article about later, so be sure to subscribe. But what we need to understand is that this constellation, aside from being associated with service, is actually far more cognitive than anybody currently gives it credit for. And we see this especially present in Taurus's nature to consume. But the type of consuming that we're looking at is much more intellectual, much more cognitive in nature. One final thing that we need to understand about Taurus is evident in what happens at the end of this portion of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Gugulana is slain and his body parts are butchered and fed to the homeless and the orphans and the people in need in the city, except for a single haunch, which is thrown at Inanna as a final insult. This is very important because there's a deeper significance here relating to bulls' haunches, sacrifices, and entrance or access to the realm of the underworld. In some myths, Gugulana becomes the lord of the underworld when he descends, as in some cases he is listed as the consort of the goddess of the underworld, Ereshkigal. In Egyptian funerary rites, bulls' haunches were often used as sacrifices and methods to access the underworld. In the constellation of Taurus, we have a lot going on. We have benevolence, the desire to serve, the desire to consume and follow one's curiosity. And we also have a spiritual undercurrent that is driving all of this. So Moon in Taurus in your natal chart is going to mean that you need a few things to be happy. First of all, you must serve. You must feel like you are of service. You are helping other people. It is a spiritual compulsion that you're going to have. You're also going to have to make sure that you're constantly feeding the intellect. You have to always be learning. Now, can you do some really difficult and tedious, monotonous work? Absolutely. But to truly be fulfilled and to live your best life, you need to constantly be learning. This is a really good academic placement, a higher learning placement. It's also a really strong family placement. Moon in Taurus can also make it easier for you to be a public servant and have a really good political career if that's something that you're interested in. Be aware how these things affect you are going to depend on other things going on in your chart. Normally, we don't like to isolate the planets and the constellations because there's too much going on and we need to look at the chart as a whole in the same way we would look at the body as a whole. If your moon is close to the Pleiades, as it shows in this picture right here, this is like having a moon conjunction with Mars, which is definitely going to increase your emotional sensitivity as well as your physical sensitivity, your sensitivity to the environment, to the food in your body. And it's also going to emphasize the sometimes more unpredictable and aggressive nature, which isn't really aggressive. It's just very wild and fertile. Closer to Aldebaran, which was originally called the bull's jaw, we have more connections to the celestial god An or Anu. And this is going to emphasize the divine, more powerful, regal nature of Taurus, and almost certainly increase the spiritual nature of this constellation as well.